welcome to another video. This is actually a really fun one I'm quite excited about. I actually have another quite large book haul to share with you. There are, I believe, more than 20 books, which is a lot. It's the most books that I've purchased in probably 5 years. And it might seem like a lot of books, but I have budgeted for these, and as I said, I have not allowed myself to pretty much buy books for, I believe it's about 5 years now. And one of my goals for this year was to just finally buy the books that I have loved and wanted, books that I'm interested in, books I want to read, just to buy some more books. That was one of my goals for this year, was to spend just some free money on books. And I'm certainly well on my way to doing that. So this is a collection of different books. Some of them I purchased off of abebooks.com. Some of them I purchased from my local bookstore. I think one of them I might have purchased as a used book off of Amazon, but I can't remember for sure. Most of them came from abebooks.com, which if you're not familiar with, it is an amazing book site that's just used books, and they have them for great prices, and I have had tons of success with them. I do highly recommend it. Not sponsored. Wish I was, because then I could buy even more books. But let's go ahead and get into this, because I'm not sure how long my light is gonna last. It's about 7 o'clock, and yeah, it's really cloudy out, but I just checked the lighting randomly and it looked amazing on my camera, so hopefully that translates over to the memory card / computer and it looks good. But let's go ahead and dive into this because I'm excited. I was actually waiting because there was one more book that was supposed to be coming in the mail, and it wasn't supposed to get here till Monday, but it came today, so I can finally start filming. So let's start with some of the older books that I have. The first one is, you actually have probably seen a couple of these in my 2021 TBR video that I filmed a while back. A couple of these I think that I mentioned in there, but first one is Anthony Trollope, an illustrated autobiography. If you're not familiar with Anthony Trollope, he wrote a bunch of books kind of at the same time period as, I think, like Charles Dickens and Sir Walter Scott. And I actually didn't really know anything about him until I watched the Dr. Thorne miniseries on Amazon, which I love. I just recently rewatched it for probably about the 6th or 7th time. Just the colors of it, the characters, the filming. I love it. I discovered that there was an autobiography, so this was actually written by Anthony Trollope about himself. I really wanted to read it, so I bought it off of Abe Books for just a few dollars. It's a beautiful hardcover copy, and I have started it. I'm about, I don't know, a third of the way through. So far, it's really enjoyable, and it's kind of fun to get the behind-the-scenes look at a very prominent and well-known author. The next one is Nellie Dean, by Allison Case, and this is a retelling of Wuthering Heights, which is a book by Emily Bronte. And I randomly picked this up at the library probably 4 or 5 years ago, and I was like, okay, I'll try it out, and I loved it. It was so good. It's told from the perspective of the housekeeper from Wuthering Heights, Nellie. It kind of goes through her life when she first started working at Wuthering Heights as a pretty young girl all the way through, and it is so good. If Wuthering Heights kind of bothers you because of the stupidity of the main couple and that they're just not great people, you might enjoy this one because it's much more focused on a completely different character and kind of more the victims of the story, I guess you could say. I think I got this book for like $4 off of Abe Books, and it's a very nice hardcover copy of it. So yeah, I think this next stack of books, I believe, are all from a local bookstore. And the first two, I hate the cover for this one. These are just the cheap paperback versions of a couple of stories by Victoria Holt. And Victoria Holt is an author that I discovered this year, and she writes kind of gothic-y romance, think similar style to Jane Eyre, Jane Austen, that sort of thing. Victoria Holt is actually a pseudonym for, oh man, I just had it. It's Eleanor somebody. I'll put it on the screen. And she actually had a different pseudonym for each different type of genre of book that she wrote. So I think Philippa Carr was like her historical novels, and something else for something else. She had like a bunch of different pen names, which I thought was awesome. But Victoria Holt, she wrote some of my favorite books that I have read this year. And I was at the bookstore and they were there for like a couple dollars, and I was like, yes, they're not the most beautiful copies of books. It has a dumb cover on it, but I really want to read more of her stories, and my library only had like 4 or something, or 3, and I was just like, this will not do. I need more. So I bought more. The next one is A Coal Miner's Bride, The Diary of Anetka Kaminska. I'm sure that is completely and totally wrong. This is part of the Dear America Diary series. I bought this because my sisters and I read this when we were relatively young. It was a book that we picked up at the library, and we all loved it because there's a little bit of a love story in it, and we would all like laugh and talk about it, and it was really kind of fun. Those memories. The book is kind of sad because it's about a young girl that her father basically kind of sells her, sort of arranges a marriage for her with a coal miner, and so she has to travel with her younger brother, I think. I can't remember exactly. It's been a long time since I've read it. And she has to travel and go to meet or marry this guy that she's never met, who is actually quite a bit older than her. I can't remember. I think she's in her teens somewhere, like maybe 16 or something. That I don't remember exactly. And he's like in his 30s with like 3 daughters, but it was not uncommon for something like that to happen. On the way there, she meets this younger man called Leon, I think, and we thought it was hilarious because in here he kisses her because they meet on the boat over. He kisses her, and she said it made her feel like her feet were stuck to the floor. And we just thought that was the funniest thing ever. But she doesn't, she still goes, she marries this coal miner and takes care of his daughters, and it is it's a sweet, sad, but with a perfect ending. So it's just a fun little book, and I saw it, I think it was like $2, and I was just like, oh my gosh, the memories. The next one is Call of the Wild by Jack London, and this was one of my favorite books growing up. Call of the Wild and White Fang. I just really liked both of them for some reason. Call of the Wild is about, let me see, it's about a family dog that kind of goes back to being a wolf, and White Fang, which was the other book by Jack London, is the opposite. It's a wolf that kind of becomes a house dog sort of thing. And I really loved them, and I saw this edition of it, and again, I think it was only like $2. I got a whole stack of books from this bookstore for like, it was less than $15. It was like 14 something. But so there's this one, and I'm really happy with it. I want to get a similar copy of White Fang, and that would just make me so happy. And then while I was there, of course, I grabbed another Louis L'Amour book, which is Silver Canyon. I'm gradually trying to work it out so I have the majority of Louis L'Amour's books in my collection, so I just grabbed another one. Now this one was actually it was like 60 cents, and I picked it up. I've never heard of it before. It's called Tim Mouse Visits the Farm, and it's by it's written and illustrated by Judy Brooke, and I look at these illustrations. They're amazing. They're just so cute, and I loved it. It's such a funny little story about a hedgehog and a mouse who are trying to get milk off of a farm, and they just make all of the cows go stampeding and cause havoc, and it's adorable. So I picked that up. I apologize if I'm talking very quickly. I'm trying to make sure I get this done before my light goes away. The next book is Katie and the Big Snow by Virginia Lee Burton. I was given copies of this and Mike Mulligan and His Steam Shovel, also by Virginia Lee Burton, when I was a very, very little girl, like 3 or 4 or something like that. I don't remember exactly, maybe 5 or something. I was very small, and I can just remember having my mom read them to me over and over and over and over and over again. I loved them, and I was at the bookstore and I saw this and I was like, why does that sound familiar? Oh, it's that book. And it was like 60 cents. Again, I just could not believe it. And it's a little bit coming out from the cover. I don't know if you can see the spine, but for 60 cents, like, my younger siblings and I, we love like this page where it has the picture of the city and then it has all of the different places and they're labeled with numbers. And so we would go and try and be like, oh, this is for this one and this is for that one. I love this book. This book, Mike Mulligan and his, it's a steam shovel. Right. Let me make sure. It has them listed in here in the beginning. Yeah, Mike Mulligan and His Steam Shovel and The Little House. We loved all of those growing up, and I want to get those for my personal library. The next one is Andersen's Fairy Tale, illustrated in color by Troy Howell. And this is another one of my childhood books. Like, we love these. This is just fairy tales by Hans Christian Andersen, and this was the edition that we had growing up, or the version, and it was 50 cents. And I saw it and I was just like, oh, the memories, and I had to get it. I had to, and I love this so much. I'm so happy because it's basically in pristine condition for 60 cents. I could not believe it. So I absolutely grabbed it. And another one is another childhood book. It's The Real Mother Goose, and oh my goodness, we read and read and read and read and read and read and reread and reread and reread this so much. I actually do already have a copy of this, but again, it was only like 50 or 60 cents, and the other copy that I have is a little bit torn up on the scuff, or on the spine. And I know that when we were little, I think we went through like 3 copies of this or something. It was insane because we read it so much. I wanted to have, I was thinking about just replacing it and getting rid of my other one, but I think honestly, I'll keep both of them for future children, and then if they destroy one, it's okay, we have a backup copy. But again, like, for 50 cents, just saying. Okay, so I think that's all of the ones that I got from the bookstore. So now we're going on to, I just recently, I believe there was the second, with our, Micah's and my tax return, and then our second or third stimulus paycheck, I specifically made a point of setting aside a chunk of that money, about $70 or $80 or something, just to spend on some books, because I wanted to buy some more books. Obviously. All of these, I believe, are from Abe Books. I think there's one from Amazon, but we'll get to that. So the first one is An Irish Country Village by Patrick Taylor, which is the second book in the Irish Country series. And I bought this one because I read the first one and fell in love with it. Like, it's about this little fictional village called Ballybucklebow, and young Dr. Barry Laverty has come to be an apprentice to Dr. Fingal O'Reilly. And I don't know his full name off the top of my head, but it's Fingal O'Reilly. And all of the adventures that happen in this little Irish town, and it's set in about the 1960s, I think, mid to late 60s, maybe into the 70s. In Ballybucklebow, it's kind of a somewhat lost in time sort of a little village where it's like, there's cars and whatnot, but they're just kind of doing their own thing. And it is so good. It is so good. And like the descriptions of like Irish countryside and their housekeeper, Mrs. Kincaid, and they just call her Kinky, and she makes this beautiful or amazing food for them. Like, it's so good. However, my library had basically the first, I think, 6 or 8 books in the series, except for book number 2. So I was like, this will not do. I went on to Abe Books and bought it, I think, for like $4 or something. It was ridiculous. So there's that one, which I've already read it. I read it in like a day. I was just like, I must read it. Now this one, I've actually filmed this book haul video before, but the lighting was not great and I just didn't feel like I looked very good and whatnot, so I'm refilming it. This is the Oxford Illustrated Dickens Bleak House. And it has a little love note in the beginning. I don't know if you can see that or if it's gonna blow it up. But it is so, so sweet. I'm gonna go ahead and read it to you. It says, "Dearest girl, this, my favorite novel ever, is an example of an artist at the zenith of their career. Here Dickens gives us his masterpiece. I hope you will love this book as much as I. Happy birthday, with my love always." I believe it's Gregory. It was written on the 20th of January, 1988. And I just love that so much. Like, there's a little bit of history in this book. This is why I love used books. There was one book that I purchased, and it was a book that was published in like the 1800s. It's a little tiny, actually I have to get it now because it's such a funny little book. And it was published in, let me see, I believe it was like 1895. And in here, there's a newspaper clipping of a stagecoach driver that died. And like, this is why I buy old books. And it's kind of a weird little story. I read it, it's just kind of odd. And on this one it says, "To Katie from Estelle, wishing her a happy birthday, May 12th, 97. So I don't know if this is 1997 or 1897. It's just awesome. Anyway, that was a random side note. Let's go ahead and film up or talk about a few more of these books. Definitely losing my light, but so that was Bleak House by Charles Dickens. Next one is Ernest and Celestine by Gabriel Vincent, and the artwork in here is so adorable. Oh my gosh. I actually found out about Ernest and Celestine from the animated film based off of this book series, and Micah showed it to me, and it's originally a French books and series, and right now it's on Amazon Prime. If you have Amazon Prime, just go watch it. It is the most adorable, wholesome, beautiful movie ever. I love it. I was able to get a copy of Ernest and Celestine, and I'm super pleased about that. I would like to get more of the books in the series, but they do tend to be kind of on the more expensive side of things, which is unfortunate and difficult to find in English. The next two books that I purchased are Gone Away Lake and Return to Gone Away by Elizabeth Enright, and these were two of my favorite books growing up, specifically Gone Away Lake. I recently reread them, and I decided that now the time had come for them to be in my collection. And it's about a couple of cousins, Julian and Portia, who discover a brother and sister who are living in an old abandoned, basically summer house town on the edge of what used to be a lake, and when there were changes made and a dam was put up, the lake basically dried up and is now a swamp. And they go and they discover Minnehaha and Pindar, who are living there, and they have just decided to stay there, and they're kind of just away from the world, doing their own thing. Minnehaha wears all of the dresses from her, the trunks that are up in the attics of these abandoned houses, and it's just such a good, wholesome story. And it's in summertime, and it just gives you all of those summer vibes. So good. And the Return to Gone Away is when Portia and her younger brother Foster and her parents basically move to one of the abandoned houses in Gone Away Lake. Their parents have bought it for them to move to every summer, and it's the story of them restoring and fixing up this house. And it's just, it is so good. The next two books, I actually already have copies of both of these. However, look at how beautiful these are. I just want you to appreciate this for a moment. This is the one that I think I might have purchased off of Amazon, but I can't remember off the top of my head. This is A Little Princess and the Secret Garden, both of them by Frances Hodgson Burnett, and both of them illustrated by Tasha Tudor. These are two of my favorite books of all time, and I did not even realize that Tasha Tudor had illustrated a copy of A Little Princess. I love this story. When I realized that, I immediately had to go and buy one. So I did. I wanted to have a nice hardcover copy of The Secret Garden that would semi-match, and they are just everything I could dream of. They are beautiful. A Little Princess is about a little girl who is at a boarding school. Her father leaves her at a boarding school for girls, and she's a very rich little girl. Her father is very wealthy. And then the news comes that her father has died. The boarding school mistress basically turns Sarah to the secondary scullery maid and sends her off to live in an attic and kind of starves her and overworks her. And it's just such a sweet story because throughout all of it, Sarah doesn't get angry or bitter or revengeful. She just kind of carries on and does her best, and that's that. And has such a good ending. It is so wholesome and so beautiful. Just go read it. And then The Secret Garden is about a little girl called Mary whose parents were living in India. Then they are all, everybody in her house, servants and everything, they all get sick with, I believe it's malaria. Both of her parents die and all of the servants leave, and she's just basically abandoned. Then when she is found, she's sent to live with her, I think it's her uncle? Yes, it's her uncle, in the Misselthwaite Manor in England. And it's the story of how she kind of goes from being this sallow, cranky, spoiled little girl into a happy, healthy, cheerful girl. And there's a lot of talk about gardens and the moors and heather and like kind of Scotland vibes. And there's a garden and it's secret, and obviously. And it's just such a beautiful story. I love this book. I have read it so many times, and it is still one of my all-time favorites. I think it's about time for another reread, especially with this beautiful copy with the gorgeous illustrations. Like, look, even just look at that. Look at that. Ah, oh, by Tasha Tudor. Okay, guys, we're down to the. Oh no, we're not. I was about to say we're down to the last two. No, we're not. And I've got 3 more after that. So these two are actually, we're just gonna touch on them really briefly. This is a collection of poems by Emily Dickinson, illustrated by Tasha Tudor, and this is A Child's Garden of Verses by Robert Louis Stevenson, illustrated by Tasha Tudor. And I love Tasha Tudor. She and Beatrix Potter are probably vying for the top spot of my favorite illustrators, but then I remember that there's Jill Barclay and Christopher Denise, and I love children's books illustrators, a very small specific group of them. I'm kind of picky when it comes to illustrations. I think that there's a lot to be asked for in the current modern children's book illustrating style. It bugs me, but Tasha Tudor is phenomenal. I want to get even more of her books, as evidenced. There's 4 of the books that she's illustrated here. But these are just, they're just a couple of collections of poetry. So these last 3 books were actually almost kind of an impulse purchase. And it is entirely due to Morgan Long. She mentioned Book Love by Debbie Tung. I kind of fell in love and had to buy all 3 of the books immediately. So the first one is Quiet Girl in a Noisy World, an Introvert Story. Book Love and Happily Ever After and Everything in Between. And these are all kind of like comic books, and they are so funny. So like, this is kind of the style that we've got here going on. I haven't read any of them because I want to do a reading vlog of reading all 3 of them, but I have definitely peeked a bit into this one, and Mike and I were just giggling our heads off. It's just so funny. It's just these kind of sweet, wholesome little, like, look at that. Let's see, can you see that? Can you see that? I don't know if you can read it. But it's so silly and so funny, and I am incredibly excited to read these. So that is all the books that I have to talk about. I'm so excited about all of these. And it is very dark now, and my lighting is pitiful. If you stuck through it this long, thank you. I love talking about books, and I'm glad that you are here to listen to me talk about books. Stay tuned. There's going to be some reading vlogs for some of these. For now, that's all I've got to say. I hope that you heard of some books that you might want to add to your reading list. If you have any similar books that you have really good memories or your favorite childhood books, I'd love to hear about them. That's all from me, and I will see you on the next one. Bye.